glad you came to visit me in my studio. I'm just sort of having fun wrapping up a little project that drawing in it and some watercolor. And I was thinking maybe you would like to do it too. So come on in and let's get our supplies together and get ready to draw and paint. Well, first of all, we're going to get something to put underneath. I found a piece of cardboard. It's just perfect. And I have a piece of watercolor paper. You're gonna want that. You're gonna need a pencil, maybe an eraser, and you're gonna need a permanent marker, black permanent marker. For the older kids, you are gonna want something a little with a thinner tip. And for the little kids, you're gonna want one with a fatter tip. Let's see, I've got my paints, I've got my, just these kind of paints on my brush, oops. I've got a couple of things of water. I got one for my dirty paint to put in and one for my clean water. I've got a little bit of salt, actually I have a lot of salt. I have a tiny, tiny bit of glitter. You don't have to have that, but if you want some, you can. I have some tiny little pieces of toilet paper, and I just got them and sort of ripped them up into little pieces, and you'll see what we're going to do with those a little bit later. I have some paper towel, got some glue for the very end, and I have some construction paper that I'll grab for the very end. And also in this project, we're going to be, it's called Swimming Salmon, and I have a reference picture of a salmon. That's something I found, and I just like this picture. I put it on my iPad, but it will be in the materials for this class, so you can make a copy or you can put it on your iPad. But you're gonna wanna look at a reference for our project. Well, I think we're just ready to start. Well, before I get started, I like to say a little prayer, and I hope you'll join me also. Father, thank you for all the salmon, all the colors, all the kids that are here. Let our hearts be filled with joy, with your love. Help us to create beautiful, fun art, and that we can give out into the world, give to those we love. And we just thank you again. Amen. For this project, we're going to need a reference picture, and so our name of our project is Swimming Salmon, and I found a picture of a salmon that we can use. For little kids, they might need to have a little pattern, and we can help them to make a little fish that they can trace with big markers. First of all, we trace with pencil, and then when we get our drawing, how we like it, how our mouth, we want our mouth, how we want our fins. Then we can grab our pen. So for little kids, they're going to want to have a fat pen. Bigger kids or adults, you can use a thinner tipped Sharpie. I use a Sharpie because it's permanent. So when we add water, color to it and other things, do at least 3 fish. Have one fish that it looks, at least one that looks like it's swimming off the page, and do a couple where you have overlapping. We did overlapping in our first project, Salt and the Berries, and we overlapped the circles to give the berries a 3-dimensional look. And so we're going to do a little bit of overlapping on this also. With my pen now, I'm going to come in, and that's where I'm going to do my detail. I just use, if you use a pattern to trace to get the shape, then you're going to want to come in and observe the fish. For older kids, adults, you're not going to need a pattern, but you might want to trace the salmon with your finger and just get a feel for the shapes of it. And you can do as much detail or as little as you want. There's lots of detail to look at, and pen and ink is just a perfect technique with animals, fish. So for older kids, a lot of times you have projects in school. I would always have my students illustrate. If they did a report, have them illustrate it. So right now what I'm doing something called stippling. And if you look at the picture on the top of the salmon, there's little sort of dots that kind of show where the skin is up there. And I'm just using these little dots. And as you can see, it's actually going to start giving it a little bit of a three-dimensional look to it. And I might do a few little lines in some of the fins and gills. I've got quite a few fish to draw, so it's going to take me a little while. And you want to take your time. And at any time on this video, if you need to stop and sort of, take the time that you want, then just go ahead. I'll be here when you're finished. And all kids are going to do a little differently. Some don't want as much detail. And as you can see right here, I'm just stippling, and I'm going to take a look and start working on some of the other salmon. And when I did my original pencil drawing, of course I did some layering. I did some where I have one fish in the front and then I have some in the back. And here we go. Just keep on drawing a little bit there. It's surprising it doesn't take that long, but when you do detail, you want to just be kind of observing, and what's going on that salmon? Is there lines? Are there dots? What is there? There's also something called cross hatching and a little lining. I might do a little bit of that in there. And you can just be drawing along with me. Your salmon might be in a different position on the paper, and that's perfectly fine. You want to make your salmon run to be how you would like it to be. Okay, and I'm kind of coming along here. As you can see, I've working on a lot of these salmon. I'm starting to kind of come to the end of the detail that I'm going to be doing on this project. And when I finish the drawing, there's a couple things you can do. A lot of times with pen and ink, you might want to take a picture or make a copy of the pen and ink drawing, because that's a beautiful art in itself, just even without color. And some kids might want to, on their pen and ink drawing, they might want to add plants and rocks and water behind with the ink pen. And that's perfectly fine. I spent many years as an illustrator just doing pen and ink. And so there's a real beauty and a real simplicity in a pen and ink drawing. A lot of detail, takes some time, but it's kind of fun to do that. But you might want to take a picture, you might want to make a copy, and just have the pen and ink. Next, when this gets finished, I'm actually going to add some color. So we're going to get ready for some color. And there's different ways you can do color. Some kids are going to want to be very detailed and take your time with your drawing, and then be detailed and take your time slowly with your color also, maybe even just a little bit of color. However, on this particular project, I'm actually, once we get our color together, and we're going to be using our watercolors, I'm going for kind of some bold, splashy, sort of an impression of a salmon run. Last summer I was in Valdez. I got to watch a salmon run. They just swim so fast. And I don't know how you could even catch them. They just go so fast. So when we start to paint, we're going to paint kind of fast. Right now I'm erasing all my pencil lines. I just use those pencil lines as a guideline, just to kind of get me started. And of course I can erase, and if I don't like the shape of it, I can erase before I do my ink. And as you can see, I have put that picture of the salmon on an iPad, and you might want to do the same thing. Although it will be included in the materials, so you can look at that, or you can make a print of it, make a copy of it, and use that. Or you may want to, you may have a project that you want to find another picture that you can use as a reference. Again, this is a perfect project if you've got a science project or a writing project and you need to illustrate something. This is true illustration. Now I'm going in with a pen. I'm making a few little lines, just a little bit here and there, that kind of represents movement in the water. And most of my movement is going to come from the color later on. But sometimes I'll add just a little bit of pen and ink, little lines behind what I'm drawing, and it just adds a little bit of movement to it. And I'm just kind of getting ready to sort of finish up and move to kind of a fun, bold painting. You might be wanting to think about putting this on pause and get your watercolors. And when I start with my watercolors on my fish, on my salmon, I'm going to use warm colors. I'm going to use yellow, orange, red, and just have fun with it. And then every so often I'm going to dip that brush in my clean water, and of course my dirty water first, get rid of the paint that's on it and get some fresh water, and just spread my colors around. And again, on this particular painting, I'm not going for real highly detailed or realistic color. I'm going for an impression. I'm thinking about being at the river or the ocean and seeing a run of salmon and just seeing lots of color and fish that are sort of running to or swimming to and fro. And that's what I'm looking for. And I'm just having fun blending and giving some little bright pops here and there. And again, using my warm colors. Once I get all my warm colors for my fish, then what do you think I'm going to do for my water? I'm going to use my cool colors, my blues and my lavenders. So I'm not going to have my blues and my lavenders right now. I'm just going to use those warm colors. Some older kids might want to, at the very top of the salmon, it's almost like a little grayish. And you could take a little bit of like gray or a little brown in the chalk pastels and put a little bit on there and rub it in with your finger. And that'll give a little bit of that grayness that you notice in the picture. Just painting real nice and fast. And I think in a minute I just might grab something else. This project is going to have some layering in it, and we call it collage when we add other things. So one of the first things that I'm going to add is a little salt. I'm going to put a little bit of that on my fish, on my salmon, and it's going to make some little textures, some little dots, which you notice when you look at a salmon. It's got some little spotting. So I use that. And then now I've taken some little pieces of toilet tissue and just very thin. If it's 4-ply, you can take it apart. And I just rip little pieces and I'm putting it on some different little places, particularly in places where my paint is wet. I'm letting it suck it up. Although some of the places maybe aren't as wet as I thought. So I'm taking some water, just a brush with some water, and I'm just kind of going over it. And what happens is it's going to stick to the paper and it's going to dry on the paper, and it's going to give it a little texture, some little layers. Now I'm doing my background, and I'm doing, as you can see, I'm working pretty quickly, fast. I'm not being real precise or super detailed, but I'm going around my salmon shapes, and I'm just gonna use my purple and blue, and I'm going to kind of blend them. I do a little bit of blue here, and then I'll probably get some water and blend it in a little bit. And not try to, I want to have some areas where there's blues and some areas where there's lavender or purple. I want to have some dark areas. I want to have some light areas. And just a nice little, like the water's just a lot of movement. And the sun is kind of out and shining, but you still have some dark areas that as you look down in the water, there'll be some dark areas, then there'll be some light areas. So just kind of have fun with your color and your water and your paintbrush, and you spent quite some time on the drawing, and we call that designing like a turtle. And now we're painting like a rabbit. I'm putting a little more salt on. I'm putting a little bit more paper down for some layering, some texture, for some collage. It just gives it a little bit of three-dimensional, makes it a little interesting, and it kind of gives the watercolor a little bit of movement, which is what you would find if you were looking down on a salmon run. And a little more salt, and yeah, just kind of a little bit more tissue here and there if I want. I can also, again, I am putting some more water if I need to, and then I'll probably look at a few places that are not drying up real well, and I just might dab it a little bit with a paper towel, and that'll also give it a little texture from the paper towel. And I always keep a little pile of paper towels next to me also, so if I need to grab something, I can. And I'm at the very end, and I have put a little tiny bit of glitter on there. You don't have to do that, but I know the kids like to do that. And I'm dabbing up the wet places. I've noticed one place that is kind of real red. It's a little too red. It jumps out a little bit. And so I'm going to take my brush with some water and sort of thin it out, which you can do that with watercolor. I'm just going to thin that out a little bit, and with some water, and dab it up a little bit. And it's going to just get a little bit lighter. It's not going to jump out as much to me. And yeah, so it's just a little process at the end of kind of dabbing with some paper. So now I'm got a little finished project here, and they're just fun, just kind of bright, cheerful, bold, a little contemporary. We've just got some nice colors, and we've got a lot of movement with the little layers that we put in there. And now your little kids, of course, remember we want to use fatter pens. And I just ask on the little kids, they use their warm colors for their fish, and they use their cool colors for the background, and keep it real simple. There's also another project that's very similar, and it has to do with leaves in the fall. It's a wonderful project. And the kids collect leaves, and they bring them, and they actually just trace the leaves, first with pencil and then with pen. They use white crayon for the veins in the leaves, and they again use their warm colors for the leaves and their cool colors for the background. Sometimes the kids will cut out like little leaf shapes from the toilet paper to put down for part of their collage. And of course we use some salt in there again, and the same rubbing with the paper towels. And yeah, just a lovely little project, nice color, just all ages. This project here was a 4th grader, and she just wanted to show some
more detail in her leaves with her pen and ink. And so it's a great project for exploring the techniques in pen and ink. And of course, being older, she is a little more detailed.
Well, I sure had some fun with that project, and I hope you did too. You know, the last thing that you're probably going to want to do is get a piece of construction paper, whatever color you like, and you're going to want to put a little bit of glue, just some little dabs on the back, and glue down your piece of art on your construction paper. Now I made one, this one I made where I just did the salmon, and he's kind of big, so I decided to trim him down. And then when I put him on my paper, I even trimmed down my construction paper. There's one more thing that we need to do when we do our art, and that's we have to clean up. So we're going to want to gather up our stuff. If we've got some soiled paper, dirty paper, we're going to put that in the trash can. We're going to want to pour out our water and put our salt away. I'm going to want to clean all this up. A lot of times I'll leave my paints open to let them dry. I just let them sit on the by the window and let them dry. When they're dried, then I'll go ahead and shut it. But I like to clean everything off. I've got a little glitter on here, and I enjoyed working with you today. I hope you'll come back for my next project. I'm going to be visiting my granddaughters. They love horses. Maybe you do too. And they saw a painting that I did of a white horse. It's on the wall behind me. And so we've decided we're going to do a painting of a white horse, and I think you will have fun doing it. On that project, we're going to need a couple little things extra. We're going to need some white acrylic paint. Not a lot, but we need a little bit, and a little bit rougher brush. So thanks again. This is Miss Vicki, and you come back and visit me again.